Connie is a faithful Christian woman who in retirement has become a daily attender of Catholic Mass. Connie is not simplistic in her faith or her understanding of Jesus. As her son-in-law reports, she knows already that the life of faith will include times of struggle and even opposition. And she knows that along the way, some disciples will suffer as Christ suffered, and that the community of the faithful must seek to persevere even in times of fear. Connie knows all this, as does this son-in-law of hers who is writing about her, himself a Presbyterian pastor. But in this passage, Connie insists, Jesus goes too far. Her Jesus would never have encouraged such division in the midst of family. How, she wonders, did this ever get in the Bible? I mean, let's be honest. Most of us, at least at first brush, probably react a bit like Connie to a passage like the one we've just heard. After all, it's not exactly one of those favorite scenes that you're going to pick up any children's picture Bible and find. Do you think I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, but rather division. I don't know how you turn that into a cartoon on a picture Bible page. I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it were already kindled. From now on, they will be divided, father against son, and son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother. There was also daughters-in-law and mother-in-law, and that kind of is a given, but that aside, you won't find such words in a children's Bible. You won't find such words in many people's favorite sayings of Jesus. The Jesus that we hear from in this morning's passage just doesn't jive with most people's conception of him, at least certainly not here in middle-class North America. A passage like this one easily makes most of us wonder whether Jesus woke up on the wrong side of the bed that morning. Just 6 chapters earlier, after all, Jesus was saying, "Blessed are the poor and the hungry and those who weep." And he was telling people, do not judge and you will not be judged, and do not condemn and you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. And so now you're probably wondering, whatever happened to Mr. Nice Jesus? Now, we could go down the road, if we wanted, of questioning whether Jesus really said these things and said them in the way that the Gospel of Luke has them recorded. And, indeed, there was even a famous group of scholars in the latter part of the 20th century who took it upon themselves to tag each and every one of Jesus's quotes and sayings with their assessment of the probability of whether Jesus did or did not actually say it. Whole careers have been spent by countless other academics analyzing and dissecting the Gospels in various ways, tracing histories, deconstructing sources. Seminary and university libraries are full of this kind of work. And if you gathered it all together, you'd find a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different conclusions. But to be honest, I don't think the important question, at least for us, is whether we can somehow prove beyond the shadow of the doubt that Jesus actually said this in this way. I think a much better question for us is, why do these things make us so uncomfortable? The part that made mother-in-law Connie so uncomfortable, that bit where Jesus says he came to bring division, with families being divided, father against son, daughter against mother, and so on, it tears right at our society's complex and highly romanticized relationship with the concept of family itself. On the one hand, of course, we feel as though families have to deal with all sorts of pressures that seem strange and new and ever increasing, from overpacked schedules and overworked parents to divorces and trauma and TikTok and all the rest. Some of us are all the more keenly aware of the even more monumental challenges faced by families that are trying to make it in the face of poverty or racial ethnic discrimination. And so many of us rightly see that to try to support families in their efforts to handle all these challenges, that's a good thing. It's a noble duty. It's a holy calling, even. And yet, on the other hand, our society has created for itself this highly romanticized, even obsessive relationship with the concept of family itself. There is a way in which, quote, the family has become rather much an idol in our society, revered and worshipped for its own sake. I mean, just listen to all that we've heard from the political and religious right over the last 40 plus years about so-called family values and how effective using that rhetoric, whatever they may mean by it, has been. And it's not just them. The right does not have an exclusive hold on idolizing the family. Liberal churches like our own oogle and fawn over the elusive young family with children just as much as our conservative counterparts. And the idolization of the family in North America extends far beyond the church. Pay attention to all the voices that pin the solution to our society's ills on the hope of families supposedly becoming healthier. Or even just look at the cachet in the marketplace that the tagline, family owned and operated, gives to a business. The truth is, as one pastor puts it, the family is idolized, turned into a cultural measuring stick and the panacea for all social ills. And, this pastor adds, when we do this, we place on the family a burden that it cannot bear. Okay, all of that said, the stuff about family isn't the only thing that makes today's words from Jesus uncomfortable for us. Even without the family stuff, we still heard about fire, division rather than peace, all the rest. It's enough to make us scratch our heads or turn up our noses, or perhaps both. We don't want to hear Jesus speak foreboding things about conflict and turmoil and even judgment, because the fact of the matter is many of us struggle with the idea that being true and faithful followers of Jesus might cost us something in this world. For us here in, mainstream, mainline, mostly comfortable sorts of churches like ours, we've enjoyed a long history of having a pretty comfortable relationship with the culture of our society and with the institutions all around us. Especially in more recent decades, as the sort of social and political shenanigans of the evangelical right have reared their heads, many of us in more mainline traditions like ours, we've clung to this notion that, well, at least we are not like them. And yet, for all of the good and gracious promises Jesus makes to us, fitting in is not one of them. Today's passage is perhaps one of the places where he makes it the clearest. Following him will make us strange, different, perhaps even unacceptable. Imagine for a moment what was faced by those first disciples, the ones to whom Jesus spoke to in this scene from Luke. And also imagine the first readers and hearers of the Gospel of Luke, perhaps some 50 or 60 years later, and the situation they were facing. In both cases, theirs was a world where being a follower of Jesus Christ really was a life-altering situation. Truly and faithfully following Jesus, living out his teachings, confessing him as Messiah and Lord, these things didn't only make you unpopular, they could be the sword that cut you off from family and friend. They could perhaps even bring upon you the sword that would end your life quite literally. The Roman Empire, after all, did not take kindly to Jesus' challenge to its conception of peace and prosperity. We, of course, know where Jesus' own journey took him, crucifixion being the empire's sternest punishment, reserved for its most serious of political dissidents. And even within Jesus' own Jewish community, as they lived under the oppressive regime of that empire and often tried simply to go along to get along, the religious leadership wasn't too keen on factions and fanatics, ones who drew too much attention and divided their ranks. And as Jesus spoke with his followers, the point becomes clear. Just look at how they treat me. What makes you think they'll treat you any differently? And so truly for those first disciples of Jesus and for those first recipients of Luke's gospel, being a follower of Jesus Christ really was a life-altering situation. But you know what? That's not only how the world was back then. The truth is, even today, if we are really, truly, faithfully following Jesus Christ in our lives and in our world, it should be a life-altering and world-altering situation. If our journey of faith is not making us question the idolatries and the status quos of our world today, if our life of discipleship isn't turning a head or two as it challenges people's conceptions of what seems, prudent and reasonable and safe, if the choices that we make because of our commitment to Jesus Christ don't cause disagreement and perhaps even division with those around us, and yes, perhaps even our own mothers and fathers, daughters and sons, not to mention the mothers-in-law. If the witness we share in the world doesn't risk our respectability and even our life itself, perhaps, I don't know what it is that we're doing. But chances are it's not following Jesus. At least not fully. Now, don't get me wrong. I know it's not easy. I am just like any of the rest of you. I don't want to stand out too much. I'm not sure just how far I want to go in putting my own life on the line. I like having a paycheck and a roof over my head. I'm not immune to the pressures of consumer culture, the desires for comfort, the allure of nice things. I get all of that. I do. But here are all the other things. Here are a few other things that I also get. I get it that Jesus is the one who loved me before I could even love him back. I get it that it is because of Jesus that I most fully know how beloved I am by the God who created and sustains the world. I get it that in Jesus we find the path through death into life, the life that is truly abundantly, far more than all we could ask or imagine. And moreover, I get it, that if I'm actually, truly, faithfully trying my best to follow him, even and especially when that means being derided by society and divided from those closest to me, then it is none other than Jesus himself who's got my back. Blessing and honor, glory and power be unto God now and forever. Amen.